Good morning, I'm Ian McDonald here with you for the introductory and first episode of the Sports Card Side Hustle. So this being our first episode, it's going to be mostly an introduction, mostly letting you know who we are, why we want to be part of the sports card market industry, the hobby that we love, and what our role can be. We're really excited about being a contributor, being part of the community, and being a part of the mix where we interact with you guys and those relationships and all of you collectors out there. So the Sports Card Side Hustle, first, where does the name come from? Let's be honest, many of us in this market where we're enjoying our hobby on a day-to-day basis, participating in it, buying and selling and trading and being a part of the market, it's our side hustle, right? It's our hobby that we love. Many of us have known it since we were kids or young adults. We're part of it, we're contributing, we're finding those relationships, but it's also now, because of what it's evolved into, we're fortunate enough that it could be our side hustle now. It's helping us financially, where we're benefiting from it, and we're in that market where we're trading on an everyday basis. So this being the introductory episode, I wanted to let you know who I am, who we are, what we want to do on this channel and with these episodes that we'll have of the Sports Card Side Hustle. So I am the owner of Variety Trading Cards LLC. I've got a storefront on eBay, so full transparency. I want to make sure that you guys know about me, know who I am when I speak my opinions and when I share those with you, and we'll do the same with our guests. So you'll hear me repeat that, make sure certain information is known and that we've shared that with you. I'm the same on Instagram, Variety Trading Cards, and I'm also the creator of the Best Damn Sports Card Group, which is running very successfully on Facebook. Big shout out to the guys running that, Teddy Reyes and Steve Warner. They're doing a great job on a day-to-day basis with the operations of that. They're having some great games, Chaser Racer, Mario Cards, all different sorts of games and giveaways that people are loving. We're getting good feedback on that, and they're running outstanding breaks. That group should hit 1,000 people sometime, probably late summer or fall. I think we're 600 to 700, and it's a young group that's been growing fast because of the participation and the players that we have from the community and those guys that love the hobby. So I want to start with that, let you guys know who I am, who we are, and just that's going to be our perspective that we're coming from. Also let you know that we're from Northern Virginia. The Sports Card Side Hustle is based in Northern Virginia, the DC area. So that's our main perspective. Keep in mind, though, when we speak sports, when we speak our love of the hobby, that yes, Northern Virginia, DC capital region is where we are, but it's a very transient area, very transient city. So you'll hear sports card investor, market movers, some of those guys let you know where they are. They're based in Atlanta, or they're based in Austin, Texas, on their broadcast or podcast. But when you think of the DC area, you think of sports, please know that because of the mix of jobs that we have here, it's a very transient area. You'll find all types of Steelers fans and Cowboys fans and Pittsburgh, New York, Dallas, people from different areas. So you're getting a mix of perspectives when you consider the market here, and that's the perspective that we'll be bringing to the show. So I'll let you know more about me as we go through the episodes and the shows, and we'll get to where this is more of an interactive with guests coming on. Questions from participants in the comments, we'll address the questions, and that'll be part of the discussion. Our goal with the Sports Card Side Hustle and how we're running the episodes, what we're doing with them, we want to be data driven, right? We want to really not ignore any of the data, not let our emotions get the best of us, not let our biases and our love or affinity, or I'll go as far as say sometimes obsession of certain teams or players, let us be too biased to where we're ignoring the data. Right now, I think we could all admit we've been in a bit of a correction or a downturn of the market, and let's discuss that data and those data sets, the data points that we can't deny that are there, that you can see in the sales data, in the buying and selling. But at the same time, we want to discuss the events of the day, the performance of the day, and all those intangibles and different things that are impacting our hobby the players, the buying and selling, and what goes on from that. So basically, we want to have a good balance of discussing all those things that are easily measurable, that you can track, that you can put your finger on, and those things that aren't quite as measurable and that might be overlooked if you just look at the data, right? So obviously, these things all overlap and have impact on the factors of which way this market, hobby, and industry goes. I think that the hobby and the market is in a great place right now, and that's our perspective as we discuss this, is that we love the hobby and the market, and we want to be a part of it. So things to keep in mind, or the perspective that we want to come from, is that this is a hobby we love, this is a market we love being a part of it, but there's some things that we need to recognize over the last 18 months that have happened that have really changed and evolved this hobby and market. And I think they should be discussed more all the time. And nobody's reinventing the wheel there when they come out, when they try to be a part of this community like I am, and they have a broadcast or a podcast or discussion on this. But there are a lot of new things coming. I don't think anybody's going to have a broadcast today or next week where they're the first to come up with any just new amazing news about the market, or they're the first to discuss it. We're all going to have some of the same topics and events that we're discussing, but I do think that we all bring a new perspective where we have to consider new things that are happening to the market. So I think before the last 18 months, the hobby was in some ways its own entity, and the market was its own entity. It didn't have a lot of external impacts, and with a lot of new money coming to the market and things like COVID, people looking for alternative investments, we really need to recognize that the sports card market and this hobby has now become a very, very viable alternative investment market. So I find that to be a good thing. It's brought more money, it's brought more discussion, more people who had strayed or left the hobby because they lost interest, things like the junk card era that happened to this hobby and market. Now a lot of those people are coming back, and everybody knows about Bitcoin and these other things that you can invest in. And so in the last couple of years, people, the middle class and up, has really spent a lot of time being interested or considering alternative investments, and how can they find other ways to invest and improve their quality of life for their future outside of just the traditional stock market and 401k. And the sports card market has really benefited from that, when people recognize that sports card market in the long term has outperformed the S&P 500 and most of those indexes that you could think of. So I do want to mention this as we talk about that, as we talk about the sports card market and industry in that context, and we discuss the events of the day, the players of the day, maybe who we should buy and sell, what's happening with the market and why. Let's recognize all the new things that have come to the market that have been strong contributors, and what we need going forward. So I do want to give a shout out to market movers and the sports card investor guys. They've created some great tools. They've really proliferated these discussions about all of the data. They've imported data from eBay. They've created tracking tools, charting, things that you can really visually look at and see, oh, something peaked here, something dropped here. Along with that, another great resource and tool that I think has even taken many of those things a step further is Card Ladder. Card Ladder, I'll go ahead and give away my bias here. I do subscribe to Market Movers, and I subscribe to Card Ladder. Card Ladder, I think, is the first that I know of to have an index. I think we need more of that. It's got the Card Ladder index. I'll just say that I know over the last 18 months, if you use that index as a baseline for some perspective of where the market is, it was below 5,000, I think, 18 months ago, and it peaked at over 25,000. As far as where we are now and the correction, I think we're in the high between 20 and 21,000, near 21,000, after we seem to have maybe been hitting a bottom. So put in that perspective, we have had a significant correction. We have had some downturn and different types of cards being scrutinized more. Is there overproduction? Is there too much? And there is more caution and people being more deliberate and careful and specific in what they buy. But if for those that might be panicking or worried about the market in the long term, yes, we've come from 25,000 down to around 21,000 with that index, but it was at 5,000-ish just 18 months ago. So if you were to say to me, you could take $5,000 and have about $21,000 in 18 months, I think most people are gonna accept that and be happy with it, even if it came down from the peak. It's probably a healthy correction. It's probably needed, and a lot can be learned from it. So let's give a shout out to those guys, Sports Cards Market Movers, the Card Ladder, and along with that, it's bringing a lot of great context and discussion, and content is the word I meant to say there. But it's bringing the fact that we have more data, it's more transparent, it's more available. All these tools are connecting to APIs where it can pull in all the eBay sales and auction sales from different places. Some of them now connecting to places like My Slabs. You can enter private sales data. So now that you have all this data and it's getting a bit more transparent and easily accessible, now we've got more discussion of it, more honest analysis, relevant analysis, and we've got great content providers. So those the crossover is a good one. It is by the guys at Card Ladder. To me, it's the best content provider as far as being data focused and almost entirely data focused. Sports Card Market Movers and Sports Card Investment Guys do have a good podcast as well. And then we've got the Sports Card Nonsense guys, and even guys like the Personal Finance Dad, where he's not just focused on sports cards or the sports card market, but personal finance overall. And he does have a lot about recognizing that the sports card market is a viable alternative investment, and he analyzes some of that data using some of those tools that I mentioned above. So we're going to be doing some of that. We're going to be having discussions using all of these tools. We'll touch on some of the same topics of the day just because it's unavoidable, but we'll try to bring our own unique perspective as we are a participant and contributor in this market, and we appreciate you being here to consider our content today. So how are we going to go about that? We're going to start off with full transparency. We're going to remain transparent in everything that we do, full disclosure on what are our biases specifically today, because I'm the one kicking this off. Ian McDonald is the one leading the Sports Card Side Hustle broadcast. I'll let you know a little bit about me, what my biases are. We'll do that whenever we have a guest on, give you just quick bio whenever they're a contributor, who they are, what's their biases, what are their preferences. So we'll talk about the sports we like, the teams we like, any of our biases, and I want full transparency on holdings and what we're buying and selling. So if I've bought some cards and I'm telling you, to go out and buy this card or why you should buy it or what my opinion is, then I want you to know if I'm holding that card and I'm thinking of selling it, and I'll be profiting from that, just the way that folks should when they own a stock and they have a blog and they can really impact the price of that stock. It's just ethical for us to make sure if we have that stock, or in this case that card or that asset. So I'll let you know what I'm buying and selling and why. I'll let you know that the sports that I love, I grew up a soccer player and soccer fan, but I didn't get into soccer trading cards until very recently. It hasn't been on the top of my list. I'll speak to that a little bit more. My teams, I'm a Mets fan and I'm a Broncos fan. Honestly, I try to stay clear a lot of times of collecting my teams or just on my teams and wasting money just because I have a extra bias towards that. I try to remain more data driven, but I do want to let you guys know who my teams are and what my biases are. and who I'm buying and why. I do focus on almost all the sports except for very little of hockey, outside of some of the iconics like Wayne Gretzky. But NBA, football, baseball, and now a little bit of soccer as far as the trading cards and investments. And I will dabble in hockey now and then. I do think we have now some very viable subsets of the sports card market that I'm just now starting to learn about. So with sports cards being an alternative investment market, now we have some alternatives in the sports cards market that are really starting to get more attention and gain some more value. Things like UFC, F1, etc. So that's another data point that'll be interesting to consider over time, and we'll touch on it in these broadcasts and episodes. So with that, I want to focus on where we are today being June 25th, 2021, and the first premiere episode of the Sports Card Side Hustle. Let's focus on where the market is and just start to get some of that discussion kicked off. So I will tell you that as far as the big sports go, I do think this is a first time that I've ever thought it was time to start investing more in soccer cards. Over the last quarter, that's been the first time that I've begun to shift some focus from the other really big three American sports to spend some more time in researching and buying soccer cards. Why do I say that? With COVID and everything else going on, soccer cards historically hasn't been as big in the U.S. markets, and there was a lot of soccer canceled or delayed. And if you look at the timeline right now and where we are with soccer cards, we just had a year in summer where one of the biggest international tournaments, the Euro 2020, was delayed by a year. So the World Cup always being that massive event, it's probably the only event in the world it gets more viewers than the Super Bowl. The World Cup final gets a lot more viewers than the Super Bowl. It's huge. It's a massive event for a month of every summer, every 4 years. Euros is probably second to that as far as international competitions. We've had a Champions League final recently. We've had where the Euros were delayed a year. So now we have really a very intense 15-month schedule of soccer where we've got this dynamic market and mix of a large list of young elite players getting notoriety and attention, international TV time, both through their clubs and now on the international stage for their national teams. So you can think of young players like Mbappe, Christian Pulisic, as far as the American market, and a myriad of players. So just keep an eye out for that. Consider buying, look at the production numbers and pick out those cards wisely. I think the next 15 months, these guys are just going to get more and more attention for the quality of play, all the way from the Euros and Copa America to the different tournaments that the U.S. men's national team is in, to where we beat Mexico recently. We roll out of these big summer tournaments, and we've got to finish all the World Cup qualifying. Some of that has been delayed and now has a more intense schedule as we lead up to the World Cup next summer in 2022. So beyond soccer, that's a change for me. That's new for me, even though I've been a lifelong soccer player and soccer fan. The order that I'm kind of focused on the other sports right now and where I'm spending my money as far as buying and being ready to sell soon is baseball hitting mid-season, hitting its mid-season stride. It's hitting the All-Star break. So you can tell right now, you're getting a good idea where these players are at, who the MVP candidates are, who's really proven themselves or broken out this season, and who's getting that deserved attention from the fans. With that, there's also, of course, the speculation of players that are getting called up new and they're young. So it's great to see these young guys. We got Ohtani has had a breakout year. He's finally proving to be everything people were hoping he'd be a couple years ago when his cards really crashed because of the hype and what seemed to be overhype at the time of him being a two-way player with immense talent. And then he just succumbed to injuries and he wasn't able to hold up to trying to pitch and bat. So this year he's leading the American League in home runs, or tied for that league, I think, until Vlad Guerrero hit one last night. He's pitching. He's not. He's got an ERA of under 3 or around 2.5. He really should be an MVP candidate. It's sad that the Angels can't win, so that might not happen. We'll see how it goes when Mike Trout comes back with him. But that's just one anecdote of the young stars in baseball and how they're coming along as we hit midseason. So we've got Vlad Guerrero performing on par with him, chance to win the Triple Crown. We've got Acuna in the National League, and we've got a real anomaly in a pitcher being an MVP candidate. I happen to be wearing his jersey right now, but I kind of broke all my rules as far as baseball and who I consider to buy. I don't buy pitchers typically much or too often, but I did load up on DeGrom, and I think that him being just a generational pitcher, that he's going to really be in the MVP running, and those are the players that I'm watching right now in baseball. Football, next. That's the next one to buy to me. Why? Because the season's coming, and nothing gets more media attention than the NFL in this country. Everybody gets hyped for a game once a week, and everybody has their list of players they think are going to be the key players to perform, and that's going to impact the market. I have also broken one of my rules when it comes to football, where I usually focus on quarterbacks primarily, and then I'll consider a little bit of running backs and wide receivers. I think Derrick Henry is one to buy right now. I've bought some of his, and I have some recently back serialized Panini Prism, the colored parallels, the purple scope, the orange prism. I'm going after those shorter production numbers. I think he is a generational player as well, where we haven't had a player where that increases his production every year and stays healthy for this long of a period in a while, where he's exceeded 2,000 yards in a season now. He has the chance to break the record coming up, especially with an additional game in the season. And there's a lot of reasons that that his cards have really been undervalued, but can now probably take off this season. Basketball, you might say, why you mentioned basketball as a third or fourth option here. Basketball is down to the NBA Finals. We have those coming. So to me, the scope and the opportunity right now is very, very narrow. 90% of your players are out as far as eliminated and or injured. Their season is over. And we're finally going to have more of a basketball downtime off season, where I think you will see just a lull in the market. I don't think there's a lot of price correction coming for basketball left, because there has been some with the overall market, but you will have opportunities where some of those now stay low for an extended period. Those guys who are just elite and have elite futures and are definitely going to have price increase in the future, when they don't make the playoffs at this young age and they don't make a championship run, and they have this period where, you know, people forget about them for a few months, guys like Zion, to me, that's a buying opportunity right now, and that you only have a very narrow focus for short-term opportunity, like long-term. So guys, Devin, Booker, and Giannis is who I'd be focused on right now as the top performers, who I think are undervalued, underrated, and their cards can really explode. Giannis has had some huge correction in his prices after a couple of MVPs and a disappointing exit. I think people had really started to give him the credit he deserves, and then as he got eliminated early last year, I think there was a sell-off, and now he has a lot of doubters until he wins that championship. But this could be the year. And I want to let everyone know too that I love vintage. If guys who work with me, trade with me, or friends of mine or peers of mine, they know that I'm probably more into vintage for my age than they are, and a lot of times they don't understand it. Why are you spending your time on those guys who aren't playing anymore? But I just find that market so interesting, and I don't think that you have to worry about the overproduction that could be happening on some of the sets today. The cards are beautiful. There's many of the classic, the Roberto Clemente, Jackie Robinson, Mickey Mantle, those cards aren't going to change. Those production numbers aren't going to change much. Yes, there are still some old cards and old collections that are going to be sent in for grading, but you're not going to see those increase by the thousands. You're not going to be shocked or caught off guard to find out there was actually 40, 50, 60,000 of those produced that you didn't know about, typically in the hundreds of those. So I will be buying and trading and discussing vintage as well quite often. So those are all the my biases, my sports that I'm focused on in the order that I look at them and trade and buy and sell. We'll get into we'll focus on different details of those each week and what the market is doing, and then I'll let you know what my thoughts or biases are as we focus on them. So I want everybody to have these events and these milestones and schedules of things coming up, and consider them in your trading and buying and your timing of how you handle your collection, how you handle your certifications and your grading of the cards as these events are coming and the impact they might have. So we've got all these events coming. We got the NBA Finals imminent. That brings just a narrow focus on a couple guys, like I said. And if you're looking at any shorter near-term deals, grading has to be quick on those guys. And then you'll have a longer period where you could get grading done before the next season for guys that are out, and you have a long time to wait on those. But then from there, we have PSA reopening July 1st. That could be huge. We don't know. Nat Turner has been out there on several of the content providers I already mentioned. He's been out there doing the interviews. He is promising that more grading levels and more affordable grading levels are coming back on July 1st, but he hasn't committed to what those might be. Whether we're going to have those really cheap bulk value packages that are available, to me that's unlikely, because it doesn't allow them to solve the problem of getting back on schedule and having reasonable timelines until they open more locations. But he has hinted that they will be opening more locations soon. They're increasing their capacity as much as they can. So right now, where the cheapest grading with PSA is $300, we should see at least an express level open up on July 1st of $150. That's what I'm predicting here, what I think will happen. So keep that in mind. On top of that, locally and in the National Capital Region, we do have our the first big show coming back that will include guests and signers. Jalen Hurts is going to be there in Chantilly, July 9th through 11th. There's some Hall of Famers like Drew Pearson. They've already had one show come back. I did go to it. It was a month delayed. It was interesting. The hype was coming back. There were more visitors, more deals going on, but there were no guests or signers yet. So this will be the first for that in the National Capital Region that I'm aware of in this Northern Virginia area. And then that's going to be followed by the National at the end of July. That's going to be huge for the country. The guests, all those marquee guests, the number of people they have visiting and going to that show, the quality of business going on and trade between collectors. So keep in mind now we've got a new dynamic with all the shows coming back in the in-person sales, as we did have a lot of innovation come to the data and where we could track the data and the buying and selling from things like market movers and card ladder. Now we're starting to have a large increase of sales where it's much harder to track and have that insight onto those. So I give Card Ladder credit for creating where you can now submit private sales data. They do ask to verify it or try to verify it in some way, which is good so that you can't skew the market with false data. But this is going to get now more difficult and harder to track some of those intangibles, or there's more of those deals going on that are in person, where the data is not just as easy as an API connecting to your tool. So keep that in mind, and we'll see if that impacts price or the data or the perception of price over time. All right, so what else is happening? This does overlap with what I mentioned of sports and the order that I'm buying in, but we do have some huge international events that are now back that were delayed. We have the Euros that are going on right now, Copa America, and then in those international soccer events that are getting huge TV time, they flow right into the to the end of World Cup qualifying and then the next World Cup. So those are some big events, and we have baseball reaching its halfway point. It's All-Star break getting in full swing, and then an NFL kickoff coming soon. So these are all events that are going to impact the market, both from performances by the athletes and players in the industry. Things like PSA and how are they managing things? What are they doing? How do their processes impact the volume of sports cards in the market, and what we need to consider from those things. So just please keep all that in mind. So these are all the things that we want to be a part of. We want to be a part of the discussion. We want to be a part of considering them. We want to talk about these players and their performances, their events, the events going on, the impact on the market. What are you buying? What are you selling? What do you want to know? How are you thinking of the data today? And how are you considering a player's performance and their age, their market, all those intangibles, and the sets and the different card production, the ways that the card producers are making the cards today, in context with how cards are graded, the volume and capacity out there. We want to be a part of this. We want to discuss all these things today, every week or every 2 weeks. So we'll try to check in every week or two. We'll evolve this broadcast and this podcast. It's going to be on YouTube, the Sports Card Side Hustle, and a podcast will be out there. We'll start to bring in guests and more players that are involved in the market, who know a lot more than I do. And I appreciate your time, appreciate you checking us out. Please provide feedback, provide comments, suggestions, comment to us, interact with us. Let us be a part of the community with you, be a part of the community with us. And we'd love to welcome you to this market, hobby, and industry. Please welcome us. So please also go check us out if you want. Follow us on eBay, Variety Trading Cards, Instagram, Variety Trading Cards, and there's a Facebook page, Variety Trading Cards. Check out the Best Damn Sports Card Group. It really is the Best Damn Sports Card Group. It's run by Teddy Reyes and Steve Warner. They're having great giveaways and games pretty much every night. Great breaks in there. A lot of good sales and trades going on in there, buying and selling, everything from iconic vintage to high-end modern cards. And that's all I got for you for our introductory episode. Again, my name's Ian McDonald. This is a Sports Card Side Hustle. We appreciate you checking us out. And this is the start for us. We want to be part of the community. We want to be a part of these relationships and be part of that human dynamic that makes this sports card market and hobby so interesting, as we spend our time on our side hustle and a little bit more time on a hobby that we love. So thanks. God bless. Everybody have a good weekend. Thank you.